Tilted today. I'm excited because as of the recording of this video, I have just hit 100 subscribers on YouTube, so thank you all very, very much. I am 6 hands into the session and I look down to ace-jack offsuit on the button. The hijack had previously bet to 5 and the cutoff had called, so I'm not that particularly worried about 2 strong hands here. So I decided to size up to 25, given that I have ultimate position advantage. The hijack and the cutoff both decide to call, so we are 3 ways to a flop, and there is already about $70 in the pot. We get a pretty decent flop with king jack 7 offsuit. This is going to favor my range a lot better than theirs, I think, given the pre-flop action. So when it checks to me, I'm going to go ahead and put another bet out there for $30. The hijack makes a very fast call and the cutoff gets out of the way. So I'm going to read that snap call a little bit more towards a draw than towards a very strong hand. He might have taken a little bit of time to consider his move if he had a much stronger hand. So when he checks to me again, I think I can kind of size up here a little bit, and I go to 45 and he snap calls again. So now I'm really thinking, I'm very confident that he's on a draw here, probably something like queen 10 or something maybe like ace queen. So when he checks a third time to me, I feel very comfortable getting it all in, and he snap folds. So I think it was a pretty good read here. I'm just never going to put him on ace king here, or even like king queen, given how fast he checked and then called. So starting off the session with a really good pot. I sped this next clip up just a little bit because this is more typical poker. You know, there's not every hand's going to be super exciting. I still think it's worthwhile to show these from time to time. You know, I know everybody wants to see big pots being built and big bluffs and stuff, but a lot of times it's very AC, especially at 1-2. You know, you shouldn't go crazy all the time, right? So in this hand, I have pocket 7s, I make an open, I get 1 call from under the gun, it's a small pot, pretty good flop for my opening range, a C bet, and he folds. 2 hands later in the session, and I look down to pocket kings. I like to include this hand because it doesn't turn out to be a big pot, but it does show that I like to balance my play out sometimes. I make a bet, I get a call, and we get a board that is not that good for pocket kings. I am going to put on a bet here just to kind of see if I can split my opponent's range. If he does have a strong ace here, he's going to be incentivized to raise. When he just calls and we get an 8 on the turn and he checks to me, I think I am going to check behind and just kind of see what the river brings. The river's bad for me, so when he checks, I just show that I have kings and we take this one down. I thought for this next segment it'd be kind of fun to show that not all the time in poker are you seeing big hands. You're going to see a lot of junk, and sometimes it's going to take a long time for the table dynamics, the position, and the cards to all kind of line up properly for you to get in there and get the money mixed up with your opponents. We are 29 hands into the session. Under the gun 1 had limped, and I have ace-jack offsuit and the hijack, so I'm going to open to 12. I like to open to 10 normally, plus however many limps, so that maths out. When it folds back around to under the gun 1, she puts in the call, and we are heads up to a flop with $22 in the pot. Flop comes 9-8-7 with 2 spades. This is a very wet dynamic board. This does favor her range, I think, a little bit better than mine, but she does check, and I do put in a half pot bet of 10. She calls, the turn is a 2 of spades, and when she checks to me again, I think I'm just going to slow down here. I might pick up some equity on the river, I might not. The river does not help me, and she leads out for 15, so yeah, most of the time here, I'm just not good. She's going to have a lot of hands here that have me dead, so I fold, and she shows 5-7 of spades for the flush.
Did I make the vlog?
Yes, you did make the vlog. A lot of times people ask that, and I always tell them the same thing. If you do something interesting, or it's an interesting hand and it makes it past the edit, then yes, you will be in the vlog. But I don't show people's faces, and I try to be as nice and kind as I can. If there was one hand of the session that I could take back, it would be this one. You'll see why in a second. I open to $10 as standard from under the gun 1. I get 1 call in the cutoff. I have queen 10 offsuit, and we get a flop of ace 10-6 with 2 hearts. I check, and he checks behind. The turn is a 5 of hearts. I'm going to check again, and at this point he puts out a bet of $20, and for some reason I decide this is a good spot to defend, so I call, and the river is a 6 of hearts. I check, and he bets 15, which is tiny, and I call. I don't know what I'm doing here. Like, he's never bluffing. I mean, even a bluff has got me beat most of the time there, so yeah, I just really misplayed that one. I read every comment and I look at every like, and I really appreciate all of them. Even the feedback that tells me, you know, be nice to other people, they make mistakes too. You are absolutely right. Non-sarcastically, that's why I include some of these hands where I make big blunders. We're all here to learn, and low stakes is the good place to learn. So thank you for the reminder. We are 56 hands into the session. The low jack has opened for 15, and I have ace king offsuit in the cutoff, so this is going to be a 3-bet. I would prefer to play these kinds of hands heads up if I can, so I raise to 45, and the low jack jams for 97 total. I'm not going anywhere for that much more to call, and so we get the bad news that she has pocket aces. The board does not cooperate with my 3-outer for a king, and she takes down a healthy pot. Next notable hand of the session is hand 62. I am in the small blind. It has limped and limped and limped. No, it was $6. Everybody called. I called too. We're a whole party to the flop. I'm going to check everything here. I have 9-8 offsuit. I've picked up a middle pair on a hearted board, and it checks all the way through. So we are still multi-way on the turn, which gives me 2 pair. This is getting a little bit better for me. I check, it checks around to the button, who bets 15. Now, he's betting 15, yeah, it's half pot, but he's also like a million multi-way. I am going to call because it's a pretty good price to get to a river. I might boat up. Everybody else folds, so that's good news for me specifically. And the river is not the boat that I was looking for, so I checked. And here's the big blunder that I made. He bet multi-way on the turn on a hearted board, on a straighted board, into a bunch of people. I called. He bets again for $40 on the river. This is never a bluff. No, stop it. Don't put the money in there. It's not a bluff. Yeah, I don't know what I was doing. Yeah, he showed the flush, and I was toast. I got to get better at folding in those spots. It was pretty obvious in retrospect that that was a value bet. And 66 of the session is a pretty big one. I am in the low jam. There was a straddle on the button and the small blind calls in front. So when I look down to king 10 of hearts, I'm going to size up here. I want to ideally have this heads up, especially against a player who is out of position, like the small blind. So when I put in the bet to 25, it folds to the small blind, who does call. We get a flop of 10 jack 9 with 2 diamonds. This is probably going to favor his range a little bit more than mine, but when he checks to me, I am going to put in a little bit of a C bet here and see if I can split his range. If he has something like 8-7, he should be incentivized to raise off right now. And when he doesn't, and we get a 6 on the turn, I think it's really unlikely now that he has something like a straight, stronger 2 pairs or sets. And so I think in this spot I can size up. I think it's pretty safe, given that he did not raise a wet dynamic board, that I can now put a lot of pressure on maybe a weak jack. So I raise to 70 over a pot of $89, and he goes into the tank for a long time and then finally folds. So I take down one with a bit of a big turn bluff. Now the very next hand, I'm dealt king queen of spades under the gun 1. I'm going to open up to 10 here, which is standard, and we do get a call from the hijack, from the button, from the small blind, from the big blind. So yeah, this is kind of like a bomb pot. I'm going to proceed with caution here. When the board comes queen 8-7 with 2 clubs and it checks to me, I'm going to put a bet in, but I'm going to bet a little bit on the small side. I think I put a $20 bet, which is less than half pot. everybody folds to the button, who was the same villain from the last hand. So I'm hoping that maybe he wants to run a bluff catch here, because I actually have a pretty strong hand here. So he puts in a call, and we are heads up to the turn, which brings a queen of diamonds. This just got a lot better for me. Now I am up front, so I think I can probably size up here. Normally against a straight draw or against a flush draw, they're probably going to call quite a bit. In this exact spot, I actually did bet smaller, 25 into 93, and he pretty much snap folds. So that tells me that he probably didn't have a draw there. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see longer videos with more hands or shorter videos with more exciting hands. I just don't really know which ones to include in these vlogs. About 2 orbits go by, and we have pocket 9s under the gun. So the under the gun had opened to 12, and I'm gonna bump it up here to 25. I'm picking a little bit of a smaller 3-bet size because of my relatively weak position. I'm fairly far out of field, and if I get a significant amount of action behind, I can get away from these. I've started to kind of play my middle pocket pairs a little bit more cautiously. Both the low jack, who cold calls, and the under the gun calls, we get a bad flop for our hand specifically. So when it checks to us, we are going to check as well. And that is when the low jack on our left decides to go all in for his remaining $76. I'm already thinking I'm probably going to fold here. So yeah, when the under the gun sticks it in, yeah, I'm dead here 1,000,000%. So I fold, and the low jack flopped the straight, and the hijack actually had 2 pairs. So yeah, feel like I dodged some bullets there. Last major hand of the session, we are 82 hands deep. This is about a 3-hour session, so it's a pretty good pace. I have ace-king offsuit in the big blind. Multiple people in front had limped, so given that I'm out of position, but I have a really strong hand, I am going to size up to 20. Oh wait, that's 25. And under the gun 1 does surprisingly limp call, and the button calls as well, so we're 3 ways to a flop. Yeah, I don't really know what that means, but we have ace 7-5 with 2 spades. I'm going to range check here. A lot of times they'll stab. They kind of telegraph their hand strength when they stab. And the under the gun 1 does bet 25. The button almost immediately jams for, I think, about 72 behind. So yeah, this is a pretty straightforward call on my part. If the under the gun does have something like 2 pair with aces, they would call as well, or they might jam. But in this case, yeah, he gets out of the way. She has ace queen, and I have ace king. It's a good run out for me, and yeah, I win this pot. It's a pretty chunky pot, and it was basically the last one of the session.